When struggling journalist Cecily Wong is given the career-making opportunity to follow legendary mountaineer Charles McVeigh, she's absolutely thrilled. She gets to follow him to the summit of Mount Manaslu. But there's one caveat. He won't give her the interview until she's scaled the mountain as part of his climbing party. Cecily is by far the least experienced of the group, but she's intent on proving herself and will stop at nothing to reach the summit. But when disturbing accidents start to happen, Cecily has questions. People are starting to die on the mountain. Trapped on the mountain with a team she barely knows, she must battle more than the elements in an epic fight for survival against one of the world's most dangerous mountains and an unknown assailant who is picking climbers off one by one. I started mountain climbing just 3 years ago when I summited Mount Toubkal in Morocco. We got to summit at sunrise on New Year's Day, and I was just so blown away by the beauty of the mountains that I wanted to keep on going. When I was invited by Nims Dai to join him on his Project Possible to climb the 13 of 14 highest peaks, Mount Manaslu, I had to jump at the opportunity. I did a lot of training while preparing to summit Mount Manaslu. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of climbing in Snowdonia, mostly in Wales. And it was also a lot of preparation trying to get all the gear together, especially as a lot of the gear is made for male bodies, not for female mountaineers. So all my boots are made for men, my summit suit was made for men, so it was really tricky to get all the gear together. One of the most surprising things about climbing Mount Manaslu for me wasn't necessarily how hard it was going up, although it was very difficult, but how difficult it was coming down from the summit, because you're already exhausted, you think you've made it, you think all the hard work is over, when actually your hard work is only halfway through and you have to make it all the way down. In fact, I took quite a large fall when I was coming down, and that was one of the scariest moments for me. And if I hadn't been attached to a fixed line, that would have been the end of me. But thankfully I was attached to the fixed line and I was able to self-arrest and stop on the mountain. But the most surprising thing is how difficult it is to come down. Yeah, it is difficult being a female mountaineer, especially as it is a very male-dominated sport. I was the youngest Canadian woman to summit Mount Manaslu, but actually I was one of only 6 Canadian women in history to ever climb the mountain. So that just gives an idea of how few women have gone into the sport, although I'm really inspired by some of the really incredible female climbers, including someone on my trip who summited without using oxygen. Steffi Trouget, she's just one of my inspirations. So there's plenty of great women climbers to look up to for me, so that's what I love. When I started my journey into mountaineering, I always knew that there was going to be a book at the end of my journey, but I didn't know exactly what that book was going to be until I arrived at Mount Manaslu. And that's when I realized that despite all the preparations that you can do, there's so much that's out of your control when you're on the mountain. So not just the weather and the crevasse danger, avalanche danger, but also you don't necessarily know the team that you're climbing with. You don't necessarily know who is around you or who the other people on the mountain are. And that's a sort of a danger in itself. So being a writer when I was on the mountain, all I kept thinking about was the different stories that were there, the stories from people who were around me, but also what would happen if one of those people was more of a danger to us than we could have realized. So that's really where I got my inspiration, and I actually did sit down in the death zone to write a couple of sentences, although I was a bit hypoxic at the time, so they didn't quite make the final draft. If you have any desires to get out here to these beautiful mountains to climb, my advice is to just go for it. It's absolutely wonderful. If you put in the training, put in the hours, it's achievable for anyone.